podcast from Peach 2020, hosted by Peter Martin.
Hello, I'm Peter Martin, founder of Peach 2020, the international community for senior executives, entrepreneurs and influencers from across the hospitality sector. Welcome to the latest in our series of Top Table podcasts, which sees me in conversation with some of the real movers and shakers in the out-of-home food and drink business, picking up on the issues shaping the future of our industry. Now, I don't need to remind anyone of the upheavals that hospitality has gone through in the past couple of years and the new and very real challenges businesses now face. One of the features of the COVID years has been the acceleration of trends both among the public and companies, and none more dramatic than the evolution and uptake of technology. Whether we like it or not, we now live in a digital world. But do we really understand what the public wants from tech when they are out and about eating and drinking, and how best to harness the tech that's out there for our businesses? Is what we have up to the job? Now, a company that's been at the heart of the tech revolution in hospitality is Zonal. So how does it see the present and future digital age? Well, let's find out and welcome my top table guest today, Olivia Fitzgerald, Chief Sales and Marketing Officer at Zonal. Welcome, Olivia. So, Olivia, where do we start with tech? It's such a big issue, a big area of discussion. I suppose the big question is, does hospitality get tech yet?
Well, good question. I think the pandemic has really accelerated the uptake of technology by the hospitality world at large. There's still some areas where we're probably trailing a bit behind some other industries, but I think that there is a very good innovation going on with businesses really starting to incorporate tech and see the benefits of it. So I think we've still got a way to go, but there's some quite exciting stuff happening.
So where is the exciting stuff? I mean, where in a sense is hospitality sort of on the front foot and really embracing tech?
I think one of the areas that's interesting is the use of social media. So, and I think in a way, hospitality businesses are naturally quite enthusiastic social media users because of the visual element of what we do is so important, isn't it? You know, we know that when people are looking for where to eat out or drink out, for example, the way a place looks is extremely important. A lot of the time, I think that there are people working in kind of younger people working in hospitality businesses who are natural social media users, and that's filtering through to the way that, you know, some hospitality businesses that have absolutely fantastic social media presences. I mean, what we're finding that's making a difference is it's not only now where people are looking for where to dine, it's also where they're making a booking, where they're actually purchasing things through social now as well. So that's kind of changing the landscape, and I think we're, maybe there's some kind of some good innovation going on there from hospitality in that some people are really building their reputation, or their whole reputation, sort of in social. I think maybe other areas like personalization, using data for personalization, is an area where we trail a bit behind things like, you know, retail in that regard. So that's an area where there's a lot more distance to make up, but also a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. So I suppose if we look at social, that is becoming more important in terms of that engagement with the consumer, because I suppose it is a bit about understanding the consumer journey, and it also seems to me that, you know, hand in hand that people are understanding marketing more in terms of strategic rather than just promotion using social.
Absolutely, I think that's true, and I think that in a way, promotions. The one thing that was quite interesting about the pandemic was that it allowed us to sort of reset our attitude to promotions a little bit, and I think a lot of businesses felt that they'd almost talked themselves into a corner on promotions, didn't they? They were too dependent on things like vouchers and that kind of stuff. So although we know that consumers, I mean, from some of our recent research, we know consumers are still looking for deals. Obviously, the kind of cost of living crunch is going to drive that a lot as well. But I think there is an opportunity to build value through not just resorting to slashing prices to build value, but just consistently kind of building that. And social, I think, is a great channel to do that. And the visual side of the business is sort of can be incredibly important in painting that picture of helping people to find where they want to go.
Talking specifically about social, Facebook has been really important going in the past, and it's still really important. But in terms of Instagram, in terms of TikTok, how is it evolving? It seems to be evolving very quickly. And I'm talking as an older consumer.
Well, what we found is that, I think, yes, you're right, it is evolving very quickly, but social media is used in different ways by different age groups. And I think that's the thing for hospitality businesses. We need to perhaps have a more differentiated strategy where we understand which platforms different age groups are using. Because sites like TikTok and Snapchat are very important to the sort of younger demographic, but for older people they're not really important at all. And it is still actually sites like sort of Twitter and Facebook are still important to the older age group. So and Instagram, interestingly, does have very wide penetration across the age groups. So yes, it's not necessarily one size fits all. You probably do have to think a bit about which platforms you want to really invest your time in, because it is all very time consuming. I think that's the tricky bit. So you've probably got to understand your demographics and who your consumers are, and therefore pick the platforms that you're really going to invest in.
I suppose there's two things come off of that. Is one, making sure you've got people on your team who do understand that age group and that demographic and the tech they're using. Is that an issue you find with, obviously, senior management tends to be older? So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's the case in a lot of businesses, isn't it? That we need to understand, we have to make a bit more effort, because we're not necessarily representative. We, as the people kind of running the businesses, we're not necessarily representative of all of our guests. And I think that's absolutely right. That but we're lucky in hospitality that we do often have some super talented younger people who we need to start kind of tapping into how they're at and what they're using, which platforms they're on, how they're behaving. I think it's we can't assume. I think certainly I'm hitting my sort of 50th birthday this year, and I can't assume that the platforms I use are going to be the platforms that consumers are going to be using in general. Because
but you make the point that it can be time consuming, it can be difficult, but it is an investment companies need to make, because that is the real connection companies have with their consumers when they're not actually physically in their premises or getting food via delivery or whatever. Have you seen that? Have you seen that evolution in terms of getting more consumer data? Because in a sense, we talk about CRM, we talk about understanding, and it seems to me during pandemic, certainly a lot of people went into e-commerce, and that helped, as it were, kickstart their understanding of databases and things like lifetime value and whatever. Are you seeing that continuing?
I guess it's been a challenge, I think, for a lot of businesses, sort of rebuilding their database, but a sort of an actively engaged database. I think they were going back a couple of years ago, before the whole sort of data sort of GDPR kind of purge that meant that a lot of people had to readdress their database. People used to talk about having sort of millions of people on their database, but I think the reality was a lot of them weren't engaged at all. And I think it's this sort of having properly engaged database who have consented to be part of your, they understand what you're going to do with your data, and they actively want to be a part of that. And I think that's a whole different ball game, really. I think that's very much changed the way that consumers are very skeptical about sharing their data, and particularly if they don't know what you're going to do with it. So I think there's the trust factor is incredibly important. And yes, a consumer database is still extremely valuable, but you have to work quite hard to keep it engaged, I think, and to show value and to prove trust. I think those are the fundamental things. Yeah. You're right about the differences. It's quite a stark difference across age groups when it comes to sharing data. So young people are, whilst they're probably more savvy about data, they've got some kind of they want to know what's going to happen with it, but they're more comfortable with exchanging their data for full personalization. If they think they're going to get a better experience when they go to your venue, then they're happy to share their data. Older people, less so, but however, when they have shared their data, they tend to be quite loyal, so they will sort of stay in a loyalty program, or I think for all age groups, I think it's just all about, it's a value exchange, really, isn't it? I think it's so many places are asking for our data now that we want to know what we're going to get in return for it. So I think you have to be very clear about, here are the benefits that you're going to get in exchange for giving us your data, and here's what we're going to do with it, and we're not going to share it with anybody. We know across the board, customers hate the idea that their data is going to be shared more widely. So I think it's it's sort of being explicit about the benefits and what's going to happen to that data, how it's going to be stored. Sometimes even asking people explicitly, do they want to receive promotions around certain events like Mother's Day, Father's Day? There's lots of new sensitivities around data that I think we have to get our heads around.
Yes, I mean, certainly around those sort of days, because not everybody has mothers and fathers or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
And now, obviously, Zonal comes out, you're in a sense part of the furniture of hospitality tech. You're a well-known, well-trusted company, but obviously you come out of EPOS. Are you seeing that people are using their EPOS data and other data sources to go into that CRM to really build more comprehensive profiles of consumers?
Yes, I think that's certainly happening in some brands, and I think it's for a lot of marketers that I speak to, that is the holy grail, is to get, if you can get your sort of customer data and your transactional data into one place and start to understand a really sort of rich picture of what people are buying and when they're buying and how frequently they're coming. And also we're starting to see people sort of looking at other ways to enrich that data. So using other sort of partner companies to, to understand the why of, why are people making the choices that they are. So it's because two people in my database might buy exactly the same thing, but what is it that's actually driving them to buy that thing? Is it, is it because they're health conscious, or are they concerned about the environment, or, there could be lots of different reasons for buying the same thing. But I think what's still a barrier is knowing what to do with that data. I think it's still the case in the industry that, sometimes we're awash with data, but finding those kind of 3 or 4 really salient data points that are going to impact my business's profits and my customers' engagement, I think that's the bit that's still the really difficult part.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously as a company, you're probably day to day, you're dealing with sort of CTOs and tech sides. What's the sort of feedback you're getting from CEOs and the people that, or CFOs, the people who finally make a decision on investment?
Well, I mean, I think it's I suppose that's one way the picture's changed for us is, I think we are the sort of the connected guest journey is our, we talk about that all the time. It's a bit of a mantra with us, and I think that we're talking. What Zonal needs to help with is more and more in the marketing sphere as well as the IT sphere. I mean, I think it's almost a given that people want their technology to be joined up. They want it to be seamless. Everyone wants a frictionless experience for their guests. But I think it's become more and more important for us to talk to people in marketing teams and understand how do they need to leverage technology, because they can't, the advantages of being able to automate, being able to not having to hand crank campaigns all the time. That's huge, because everybody is short of time, short of resource. So technology and marketing, I think, need to come closer and closer together in order to really achieve that properly joined up customer journey.
Because obviously Zonal comes out of EPOS. That's who you grew up as a business, and there's 2 things on that. I mean, there's a lot of people saying EPOS is dead and we don't need that, which is probably not good news for you guys. But I think, I mean, what's your view on that?
I mean, I think it's it's something that actually inside our business we talk about that sometimes, because I do think, and I think the conclusion we've come to is EPOS is not exactly dead, but it's different.
Yeah.
And it's less and less, it's going to be less and less about a chunk of hardware that sits in the middle of your business, because for some businesses it's all about customers ordering on their own devices now, or it's all about you might want different, you might want to choose your own hardware, you might want, I think people want total flexibility, but what it's really that robust sort of data infrastructure that's sitting in the middle of your business that allows you to understand what's going on, make decisions in real time, connect to all the, join up all the different bits of tech in your business so that there's one source of the truth and all of that. So, but I think it's becoming a much more flexible network of technology, as opposed to, it's not just one central EPOS sort of bit of kit where you put your money at the end of the day. I think it's much more about a diversified technology picture, some of which might sit on customer devices, some on your own devices. It's needs to be very, very flexible now.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Zonal, how's the company changed in terms of its evolution, in terms of what you're providing and how you're working with other partners? Because one thing we know, there is an awful lot of tech out there. There's a lot of apps. There's a lot of people trying to sell people things. How are you playing it? How does Zonal evolved?
Well, I suppose we need to strike a balance in some ways with, as far as partnerships are concerned, we need to strike a balance, because there is a new company springing up. I mean, I think, we must get between 5 and 10 kind of inbound requests for partnership every week, literally. So there's loads of new stuff out there. Some of it's going to be brilliant and life-changing, and some of it's not. So we need to connect, we need to connect to the right systems, and also, I guess we're building our own sort of toolkit has got bigger and bigger. So the breadth of products that we need to support within the Zonal world is now huge. But within the wider partnership world, I think we now have over 130 partners providing all sorts of tech, from sort of behind the scenes systems to front of house stuff and I think customers, I think the businesses we work with, they do want choice, and they want everything integrated, but they don't want to be dictated to in terms of which businesses they can work with. So for us, it's become incredibly important to integrate with all of the, with those kind of, and with some of the new things coming up into the market that are starting to make a difference. So innovation, I suppose, means our innovation, but also our partners' innovation, and I think we can help our customers with both of those things.
Yeah. Now, in terms of as it were, the interface with consumers, I mean, we've talked a bit about, as it were, that journey on the way to the pub or the restaurant or the fast food outlet, in terms of people want to know where they're going, what to order and whatever. I think it always seems to be that one of the areas of resistance to tech is this sort of argument about, we need to protect the experience when people are in the pub or in the restaurant.
Yeah.
How important is that? Or is it that actually consumers want more tech when they're in there, using their phones, ability to pay? What's the balance, and what's the sort of feedback you're getting from your customers?
Well, I think that consumers, the pandemic, I guess, did drive the acceptance of using tech, that tech could be part of a good hospitality experience. So I think we all got used to ordering through our mobiles and paying and that sort of thing. But at the same time, people very much value the personal interaction and a warm welcome when they go to a venue, and all those things that they've always loved about our industry. And I think, I don't know, my biggest takeaway from the way things have settled out after the pandemic, I guess, is that it's really, you need to look at your business model first, and look at your service, and think about how tech can enhance that. So I don't think any consumers, and this goes, even younger people who are totally comfortable with using technology, they don't go out to a venue usually because they're looking to use technology. It's just about how they can get the best possible experience. And I think it's kind of, it's not one size fits all. The way technology can work for your concept is not going to be the same as the site 5 minutes down the road. It's building it into your experience so that your staff understand it, and provides an enhanced customer experience. So it's not tech for tech's sake.
Yeah.
I think that's the key thing, you know. So yes, there is a lot more. I think the barriers to using technology have come down, but we still need to not put the cart before the horse, I guess, in terms of, you know, people don't go out to interact with technology. They go out to just find the best possible experience, and tech can help that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that seems to have come out again of COVID, because certainly with fast food has been open, people are used to delivery and ordering and click and collect, is convenience has become a bigger driver. Is that reflected in sort of, you know, feedback you're getting from your research?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people, I think the key things, if we're talking about dining out in a venue or drinking out, I think that some of the things that the biggest pain points for consumers are, you know, just unnecessary waits, to have to, you know, trying to catch somebody's attention if you're, you know, want to order another drink or you want to pay your bill. That's a big source of frustration, I think. And I guess it always has been, but I think why it's come into clearer focus right now is because staff, you know, with the difficulty that businesses across the board are finding with, you know, getting the right staff and enough staff. I mean, you know, costs, obviously controlling costs is so important. And I think, I mean, in a way, that's a good example of where technology can really just help with that pain point, because if you can streamline your orders through you know, through some technology and reduce the need on people to, say, for example, go around to tables and take the orders, then in some sort of service models that's super useful. So it's different depends what your customers' expectations are, I guess, but yeah.
I mean, let's look a bit about back of house as well, because we talked a lot about the consumer and their engagement with technology. But obviously, at the moment, we have got massive pressures on supply chain. The pressures for commercial directors are probably bigger than they've ever been. And obviously, there's a lot of tech can be used behind the scenes. How are people coming to you and asking for more solutions there? How important is that going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that certainly, I mean, as we see our solutions falling very broadly into those two categories of, you know, everything that's guest facing, then everything that's sort of behind the scenes, sort of including the, you know, sort of broadly supply chain orientated. But yes, I mean, the ability to, I think, you know, the ability for centrally to see who's buying what and to be able to control those costs and to be able to, you know, to see all of that in real time. Certainly the appetite for kind of automated stock and ordering systems is certainly growing. I think there's a you know, much greater percentage of businesses interested in that side of things. And also I think the whole sort of kitchen management is, I mean, obviously been around for a long time, but lots of companies investing very much in that side of things. And I think something that's going to be interesting is going to be the link up between what's going on behind the scenes in, say, for example, in your kitchen management system, and how alerts to, for example, to front of house staff, so about what's going on, you know, how long is the wait, when's my food coming. Again, our research shows that there's a lot of interest in those sorts of updates and messages. So, and I think just thinking about making the most of the staff that you have and making sure that they have the crucial bits of data that they need are sort of perhaps on a device front of house, that they can immediately sort of know what's going on and communicate that to the customer. So seeing a lot of interest in that sort of thing too. And again, I think the convergence of these systems, so that the crucial bits of data from are kind of flowing, so onto your POS, so you can see it front of house, or onto your mobile ordering devices, or, you know, so I think that's going to be quite a big theme in the next 5 years or so, is just connecting the dots with the data and putting it actionable bits of data in the right place, so the right person can action them in real time.
So really, so I was going to move on to looking at the future. So it is about integration, making sure things talk to each other. Anything else you see as steps forward we can expect in the next few years?
Well, I think, I mean, again, on the theme of real-time interactions, but I think I think things that can be done to enhance the customer experience, sort of in during the session when they're in a venue is quite an interesting. I think when all of the technology is connected, there could be some really nice sort of fun stuff about sort of giving someone a promotion when they're actually in a venue that we, so for example, if we know that somebody's spending patterns have like perhaps they haven't, they visit my venue every 2 weeks, but they never they always eat, but they never order a dessert. Is there something we could do to send them, to ping them a smart voucher kind of when they've just finished their main course, to say, hey, how about that chocolate brownie? Or so I think there's some, and I think there's some kind of fun, more gamified sort of stuff that could in session that will be really interesting. I think also multiple channels for, multiple revenue channels. We've seen a lot of that coming out of the pandemic, but I think that will continue. Needing to look at different touch points with your brand, different ways to, and different revenue streams that you can build. And also I still think there's a long way to go with the use of data, with this, as we were saying before, with the bringing together kind of demographic data, transactional data, your customer data, and just starting to do some really clever things to generate more repeat business through that.
Yeah, in a sense, it's a really exciting future. But I suppose the issue is that, are the systems that a lot of companies got robust enough? Are they going to cope? And if they're not, do you think companies are going to be willing to invest what they need to invest in tech?
I mean, we're certainly seeing, I think with the bigger businesses, I think that they, the feedback that we've had in the last, let's say 6 months or so, I think a lot of people are investing in technology. They're seeing how important that's going to be in kind of in controlling costs and achieving the customer experience that they want to get to. I think it can be more difficult. I mean, right now, I think for single site businesses or SME businesses, I think that can be quite painful to try to access the same kind of technology that the bigger businesses are getting. If you're talking about sort of in the sort of pub sector, for example, is it, what sort of level of technology do the smaller businesses need? I think that can be a bit more tricky, but I think essentially the same kind of connected toolkit is exactly what's needed by all sizes of business. But it's just, I think that maybe the challenge for a company like Zonal is how to make it very plug and play and straightforward to use for a sort of smaller business that doesn't have an IT team, doesn't have a data warehouse, all that stuff.
Yeah, which are the things that bigger companies will have or need to have going forward. Now, change the subject slightly away from tech. One of the big issues in hospitality at the moment is about diversity, getting more women into boards and whatever. And here you are in a tech company in a senior position. But I also note, last few weeks, Zonal have been involved as a sponsor of Women in Tech and the Employers Awards. I suppose, how has your experience of actually getting to a senior position helping people in the tech side? And does the tech side have some of the same issues which hospitality has in terms of promoting women?
Yeah, I think very, very much so. And I'd say that goes for all sorts of diversity sort of issues as well, not just male and female ones, but certainly I think that we are probably a reflection of hospitality, because we get, sort of, I think 2/3 of our people come from a hospitality background, and particularly on the commercial side of things, because we need people to understand the business. So I think what's true of hospitality is equally true of companies like Zonal, that whilst there are at entry level roles, there's a very good mix of, and it's very diverse. Actually, once you get up to the boardroom, it's really not. And it's I guess certainly been in lots of situations where I've sort of been the only woman at in the boardroom, and that's I think I'm really lucky. I've had lots of opportunity, and I can't complain about that. But I think having come up through, I don't know, I've come up through a sales route, and there's something very nice and direct about sales. I think there's if you're a good salesperson, you're going to be very valuable to a company, and so that's I think that's sort of, I don't feel like I've been hugely hampered, but I think we need to work a lot harder to make sure that we're looking in the right places to find the talent, because it absolutely, it absolutely exists. We absolutely need our company to be made up of the right mix of people that reflects the consumers out there that we're trying to serve, who are a broad range of cross section of the population, and I think it's a real kind of live issue. I think for me, I think it's sort of you have to try and be, things like tackling unconscious bias. I think there's been a lot of talk about that, but I think we also have to look. Perhaps we have to look a little bit more deeply, try a bit harder on things like recruitment, like where are we going to find these people? How are we going to give them how are we going to sort of reach out to people that perhaps don't feel they belong in those in the boardroom? And so I think there's plenty more work to be done. I think that at least there's a conversation happening now, which 10 years ago it wasn't. And I think that's a huge step in the right direction, but it certainly there's still plenty more work to be done.
Yeah, in both technology and hospitality. Now,
sure.
you and I have known each other a while, and you've always been fairly optimistic. But obviously, you're looking at hospitality. We've talked a lot about the opportunities for tech. I mean, how optimistic are you about hospitality going forward? Because the pressures are enormous, but then again, the pressures are enormous on all sorts of businesses.
I do think we're in a particularly, the situation we're in right now is hard, is very hard for hospitality, and I think and lots of other businesses. I'm hopeful that it's not going to last forever. It seems to me that a lot of people in the industry are quite robust about the longer term, but there is a reality that this year is going to be tough. Probably next year is going to be reasonably tough. I think we're going to have to fight really hard to find ways to get through that. And the cost pressures coming from every angle are absolutely undeniable. But I do think that we've done some of our recent research with CGA into teens, for example, and what they're looking for and what they want. I was very reassured to see that they're actually not looking for anything very different from what previous generations have looked for, which is, it is making this connection with people. It is this, incredible experience of going out. And I think these fundamental things that we are looking for as human beings in going out and socializing and eating great food and drink, and I don't think that's going anywhere. I think that in the longer, sort of mid to longer term, that the appetite is absolutely still there. And so I'm optimistic about the longer term future. I think this year is going to be pretty tough, not just for hospitality, for all kinds of businesses.
But we'll get through it. I think that's your message.
We will get through it. And I suppose the optimistic. I am kind of a bit ridiculously optimistic sometimes, but I do think that the tough. I've been through several kind of really tough periods in hospitality, and I think that one of the great things is it does drive innovation, and it does make us kind of sharpen up in all kinds of ways. And I think I think it's actually quite exciting. Some of the ideas and changes that come out of a period like this can be quite invigorating, actually, and then you sort of almost feel like you get in great shape, and then when things improve, you really reap the benefits of being in better shape. So I think we're doing the hard yards now, I think.
I think you're probably right. Olivia Fitzgerald, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Peter.
This series of podcasts is sponsored by Chapman Ventilation, QSR Automations, Yumpingo and Zonal. The Peach Podcast is always free to listen to. To find us, search Peach 2020, the top table on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or in any app that supports podcasts. All our podcasts will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. Now, don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss our future episodes.
Podcast from Peach 2020, hosted by Peter Martin.